Friendship with a disabled child. Barron Trump had spent his entire life in the public eye. He lived in luxury, but even in the midst of large crowds, he knew what it felt like to be alone. People always saw him as the president's son, never considering that he might have his own struggles, fears, and insecurities. But one day, he met someone who changed his perspective forever. Lucas. A different kind of friendship. When Lucas joined Barron's new school, everyone immediately noticed that he was different. He was born with a muscular disorder that required him to use a wheelchair. Most students kept their distance, some simply out of discomfort, while others openly mocked him. Barron often saw Lucas sitting quietly in the schoolyard, lost in the pages of a book. He was always alone. While other students played basketball or laughed in groups, Lucas sat in the shade, engrossed in his novel, seemingly unaffected by the world around him. One afternoon, curiosity got the better of Barron. He walked over and took a seat beside Lucas on the bench. "What are you reading?" Barron asked, glancing at the thick, well-worn book in Lucas's hands. Lucas looked up, a small smile forming on his lips. Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. Barron raised an eyebrow in surprise. "That's a pretty heavy book." Lucas nodded. "Yeah, but it teaches an incredible lesson about who people really are at their core. It's about resilience, about understanding that people are more than their circumstances." Barron found himself intrigued. That was the first of many conversations they would share, facing the cruelty of the world. From that day on, Barron and Lucas began spending more time together. For the first time, Barron felt like he could be himself. Lucas didn't care about his last name, his wealth, or his family's influence. He treated him like any other kid. They talked about books, life, and even their deepest fears. Barron found himself opening up in ways he never had before. However, not everyone at school supported their friendship. Some students continued to bully Lucas. They would make snide comments in the hallways, block his path just to see him struggle, or worse, ignore his existence entirely. One afternoon, Barron witnessed a group of kids shoving Lucas's wheelchair. His heart pounded with anger as he ran toward them. "What the hell are you doing?" Barron shouted, his voice sharp with rage. The boys laughed. "Relax, President's kid. We're just having some fun." Barron clenched his fists, ready to throw a punch, but Lucas gently grabbed his arm. "It's not worth it," he said quietly. That night, Barron lay in bed, replaying the scene in his mind. He thought about all the speeches he had heard his father make about justice, equality, and human rights. Those words had always seemed distant, but now they felt personal. He realized he couldn't just stand by. He had to do something. Taking a stand. The next day, Barron met with the school principal. "We need to educate people about disabilities," he insisted. "There's too much ignorance, too much cruelty." The principal agreed, and within weeks, a large awareness event was organized. Lucas was invited to speak about his experiences, and for the first time, people really listened. The students who had once ignored or teased him now saw him in a new light. Barron felt a sense of accomplishment, but more than that, he felt proud of his friend. A friendship that changed everything. As the school year progressed, Barron and Lucas grew even closer. They spent weekends together, talking about life, playing video games, and exploring the city. Barron even pushed Lucas's wheelchair up steep hills when they went out, laughing whenever they lost control, and sped down the sidewalks. Lucas, in return, helped Barron navigate the struggles of being in the spotlight, teaching him how to block out negativity and focus on what truly mattered. One evening, Lucas shared something deeply personal. You know, Barron, my biggest fear isn't my disability. It's being forgotten. People look at me and assume I can't do things. I just don't want to be invisible. Barron was silent for a moment. Then he said, "You're the least invisible person I know, Lucas. You matter. And I swear, I'll never let anyone make you feel otherwise." A new future. A year later, Lucas received a full scholarship to one of the most prestigious universities in America. The day before he left, he turned to Barron and said, "You're like a brother to me. I mean that." Barron, feeling a lump in his throat, pulled him into a hug. "And you're my best friend, Lucas." As he watched his friend roll away toward his new future, Barron realized how much he had changed. He no longer cared about what people thought of him or the expectations that came with his last name. All that mattered was the impact he could make, the difference he could create in people's lives. And he knew that sometimes the greatest lessons came from the most unexpected places.